Welcome to your new favorite pop culture podcast, Post Credits. I'm your host, Loosh, with my co-host, Dino. How you going, Dino?
Hey, buddy. How you going?
Yeah, what's crack-a-lackin', son?
Not much at all, man. I'm actually keen to finally get this thing started.
Hell yeah. What are we going to talk about today?
So we've been talking about our top movies for a while. And this is just, me and you talking about movies, things that we're interested in, but not just movies, but anything pop culture.
Anything pop culture. You know what I like doing?
What do you like doing, mate?
For those WWE fans out there, those fans of Chris Jericho, the Jericho Appreciation Society, Dino?
Yes.
I just made a list!
You just made the list!
Oh, let's hear it. So we're going to do a countdown. Now, how many did you get on this list, mate?
I got 20. My top 20.
All right. I'm keen because you haven't shared any information about this with me at all.
No, sir. No, I have not. I thought we would start our very first episode of the Post Credits podcast going through, in my opinion, with consultation on social media with quite a few friends, my top 20 most important pop culture moments ever.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm keen. Let's go.
Now, what I will say is these are not in a specific order until we get to number one. There is a definitive number one most important moment in pop culture history that I have written down. And I've spoken to a few friends and colleagues and I've asked them all, what is your number one moment? They're all like, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that. And then I tell them mine and they're like, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. So I'm good. I'm thinking that this is going to be it. Are we ready for number one? Well, it's not number one. You're ready for number 20, I suppose.
Let's go.
The Spider-Man meme. We all know and love the Spider-Man meme. The three Spider-Mans pointing at each other. And that absolutely delightful moment where we got to see three Peter Parkers in real fucking life pointing at each other. It was just magic.
I don't know how to really touch on it. When meme culture gets into cinematic movies with a budget of millions and millions of dollars, you know there's something important there.
It's fantastic. It was so good to see. And, I think going into Spider-Man No Way Home, I think we all had an inkling that we were going to see Toby and Andrew back in the scope, back in the cinema. I think we all hoped that we would see it. But then when it happened, I think it caught everyone so off guard. It was like, oh my god, they did the thing!
There was a moment, there's not been many moments in history where I've gone to the cinemas. And, Australia is a pretty relaxed culture. When we go to the cinemas, it's not as upbeat. You see the American videos of, in the cinemas where they're, cheering and clapping in moments. Yeah,
it's so weird.
I was in the cinema when that moment happened, and genuine people just, cheering and screaming, clapping.
It was fantastic.
It was the best. Did you think Andrew Garfield, or do you think Tobey Maguire got the biggest click cheer? Because I know who I think it is.
I think it was Andrew Garfield.
I agree.
I think it was Andrew Garfield.
Do you think it's because he was the first one, or do you think because there's so much story behind Sony and obviously Spider-Man and stuff like that?
I'll tell you why I think.
Okay.
The reason why I think is because of all of the Spider-Mans that we've had, he's the one that got the most hard done by.
I agree. But
he was supposed to have a trilogy, and they cut it short.
And not only the trilogy, but there was there was this general feeling that he was a good Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best Peter Parker, but he was a good Spider-Man.
He was a great Spider-Man.
And yeah, I agree with you. That's a great moment, mate. Great moment.
Number 19, I'm going to let you finish.
I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift's acceptance of the MTV Video Music Award. My God, is Kanye West the biggest flog on the face of the planet or what?
I know.
Sorry, not Kanye. Ye is who we now refer to him as.
Look, I've watched this video clip a few times, and you can see the real human moments, especially with Taylor, on when it happened. You could see how, this is her moment, this is everything going on, and then all of a sudden, Kanye walks on stage.
I think Beyonce was horrified too. I think Beyonce was kind of, what are you doing, bro? Stop, please.
Yeah, there's that secondhand cringe, that embarrassment you get from And obviously, there's a part of you where your friends back you up and you feel good. But that moment, it was a rough one.
Obscenity. Like, what an absolute goose. I'll tell you what, man, like, you want to talk about someone who just a few years ago was, one of the richest musicians, one of the richest rappers in the world, who could not put a foot wrong. And he just tied himself up. I actually watched a really interesting documentary the other day on Binge about the life and downfall of Ye.
Was that what it was called?
Something like that, yeah. It was really fascinating. Just, like, he literally comes out and says, I'm so big that Adidas would never drop me. And the next fucking day, Adidas drops him. So,
yeah, I remember those comments.
So
and I remember when he went through all that kind of stuff. You can't hold a candle to his talent.
Nah.
His talent is undeniable.
Nah.
For sure. But when your ego kind of outweighs your talent, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yep.
And I think him jumping up there, and the funny thing about it was, he didn't do it for himself. He didn't go up there and say, it should have been me.
You sure that wasn't for himself, though?
He definitely interjected there with some effort from himself, but when he jumped up there, it was for someone else. So there was that moment where you're like, you're doing it for a friend, it's not as selfish, but yeah, no, it was classless.
Next on my list was something that is so controversial that there have been so many documentaries, and it is such a tongue-in-cheek moment, even to this day, the absolute clusterfuck that was Fyre Festival.
Fyre Festival? Now you have to introduce me to this one.
Okay.
I'm unaware.
So Fyre Festival was a festival that was being held on a Bahamas, in the Bahamas. Somewhere in the Bahamas. It's being held on an island. And there was this like massive lineup, and it was like a really expensive festival, and people were spending thousands of dollars to buy these luxurious tents to come into this festival. And they had bands like Major Lazer and Blink-182 supposedly confirmed for the festival. And they had all of these amazing photos of these beautiful, beautiful beachside tents, supposedly for all of the thousands of dollars that people were paying to attend. It was all a scam.
Really?
It was all a scam. Attendees thought they were heading to the festival of a lifetime when they jetted off to a private island in the Bahamas to see artists like Major Lazer, and Blink-182. Upon arrival, they learned that they had been scammed after the headliners had dropped out with no communication from the festival coordinators. The accommodations weren't as advertised, and the catering contract was terminated on the day the festival was supposed to start. The Bahamian government eventually cancelled the entire event. I believe there was some storms or something that were heading towards the Bahamas at the time as well. And the bloke who was running the whole thing, this is in 2017, the bloke who was running the whole thing was sentenced to 6 years in prison in the Bahamas for scamming hundreds of thousands of dollars off people.
So it went to court.
It went to court and everything. There was a whole documentary. And the reason why I put it in my list of important pop culture moments was because it was at a time where it was just unheard of for major festivals to collapse the way Fyre Festival did.
Yeah.
Like, it was just unheard of.
I have to watch a documentary on this.
It was really fascinating, man.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd find it really interesting. Okay, next on my list, the infamous, now porn star, Chris Crocker.
Leave Brittany alone!
Holy shit, man. This kid, this little bleached blonde-haired kid hiding under his bed sheets at home, bawling his eyes out for 12 minutes about the way the media was talking about Britney Spears. What the hell?
How do you think someone like Britney Spears would deal with those kind of things? And people like this person who's kind of like reacted in that moment, how do you think they'll deal nowadays compared to when it happened? Because...
well, I don't think Chris Crocker really cares all that much about leaving Britney alone these days. Well, I mean... Britney went through some really shitty things with some really shitty people around her advising her and moving her in some really, really shitty directions. And it is only very recent that Britney has reacquired her freedom from those people, including her father, who had a court-ordered control, essentially, over all of her finances.
Yeah, right.
The court's basically deemed, I don't know whether the court's deemed or I think mental health services or something deemed her to be so unhinged that she couldn't control her own financial well-being. So they put the power of her financial management in her father's hands.
See, that's rough. It's rough when you have no real connection apart. Obviously, it's your daughter, right? So there's a different thing there. But when you have no real connection to the product that created the finances, and you now have control over it, that to me is that it feels icky. It feels weird.
It was, I reckon it was maybe about a decade of people fighting on behalf of Britney to have the court release her from her father's heart. Like, she wasn't allowed to do anything. She wasn't allowed to see her money, touch her money. Like, it was just, it was wild, man. It was wild. I reckon they broke her. I reckon they really proper broke her.
Yeah, and especially with the fame you dealt with early in your life. Like,
Yeah.
she was massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
But you know what? She's free. And the first thing she did was she released a song with herself and Elton John, which I was so stoked to see. Yeah, no more concerns about leaving Britney alone, eh, Chris?
I love it. Love it.
Right. Now, some of these moments that we're going to talk about are a little bit somber. I will say that the next moment that I'm going to talk about, I remember exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing, and how horrified I was the moment that I learned that Michael Jackson had passed away.
It's so funny. I was thinking about this literally this week.
2009.
I remember where I was.
Same.
I remember exactly where I was. So, for me, back then I was plastering. I used to be a plasterer. And I remember walking onto the job site, and I remember my boss had lost his license and I was driving into work. Terrible.
That sounds about Queensland.
Terrible.
Sorry, Queensland.
He's a good party.
Up the blues.
Great to have a drink with, but unfortunately not to get in the car with afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I drove his vehicle to work, and my best mate, he'd just lost his job, and so I said, "Oh, come and do some shifts with us. I'll get approval. You know, you can come and do some like labouring shit." So he came and worked with me. I was working with my other mate Stuart, and we walked onto the job site, and we turned the radio on. And as we turned the radio on, that's when we heard it. And well, it was shocking.
It's horrifying.
It was actually kind of crazy.
No, it was absolutely horrifying. Like, the bloke was obviously very tortured. There was a lot of controversy surrounding him over in the last few years of his life. But you know, like, he seemed like he was on the precipice of doing something really spectacular with the shows that he was going to be doing in London. I think it was like a record-breaking 50 shows in a row. You know, he'd been rehearsing for so long, and he'd been trying to get himself back into what we call match fitness, just so that he could kind of recapture some of the magic from his earlier years, and then, boop, he's gone.
There seems to be like this correlation between torture and talent, where like, the more talent you have, the more tortured you are.
Oh.
I don't know if it's like they live in like this echo chamber or this bubble where they're so talented, they're surrounded by people that want a piece of it, and so you're not surrounded by people that have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And so when you think about what happened to him, it was such a moving thing for the rest of us. But like, how did that affect like the people around him?
Yeah, my biggest regret when it comes to Michael Jackson is when he came out to Australia in 1996 for the Dangerous Tour. It was the last time that he came to Australia.
Oh, right.
And I was, in 1996, I was 14 years old.
Yep.
And I begged and pleaded with my parents to let me go and see Michael Jackson's Dangerous show in Sydney. And they said no. And I remember the day that Michael Jackson died, my mother called me up and apologized for saying no, for not letting me go and see Michael. I was that much of a fan, and she knew I was that much of a fan, that when she heard that he died, she called me straight away and said, "I'm so sorry, I never let you go see him."
It's kind of crazy that, like, even though she said no at the time, right? And you'd think, you know, someone's like, oh, no, this is not really something I want you to go to, not something I have, you know...
You're too young to go to it right now.
Yeah.
Next time.
Right, next time. But then, like, it shows how many lives he touched, even if you don't hear those people talking about it, for her to call you and say that. So, yeah, no.
So what I will say to any parent who next times their kid, YOLO.
I love the YOLO rule. YOLO rules are the best.
Leading on from that, the next item on my list is one that we all like to talk about anytime something absolutely fucking ridiculous happens, and that is... The Simpsons predicted everything.
I am a genuine fan of this one. Genuinely a fan. You go on those rabbit holes, and I think... I don't know what one stands out for me the most, but I think after going down those rabbit holes, I think the Trump one's the one that stands out to me the most.
The Trump one stands out to me as well. The submersible disaster.
Because
that was like Homer Simpson's dad was a billionaire, or he thought it was his dad was a billionaire, and took him down into the thing, and the submersible fucking started to malfunctioning voter machines, because apparently everything malfunctions in America on one specific day every 4 years. It all works perfectly fine every other fucking day of the year except on that one day in November.
Yep.
Lady Gaga, the Super Bowl, but the one that I love, the one that I to me is the most fucking hilarious, you couldn't have fucking telegraphed it any better one, was for years and years and years, The Simpsons made jokes about how one day Disney will buy them out. And then it happened.
Fucking hell. Maybe they're just telegraphing, hey, maybe just throw some cash our way, we got this?
Yeah, look, I think it's one of the fun ones. I do think there's some really fascinating conversations that have been had over the years about how The Simpsons manages to get all of these quote-unquote predictions right. But, I think when you have a TV series that has gone for as long as The Simpsons has gone and has covered as many topics as it has, eventually you're going to hit a few nails on the head.
Yeah, I think that's what most of it is. I think that's the problem with The Simpsons one, because there's some that are so perfect and so ridiculous. Like, and I go back to the Trump one, like the kid dropping the sign and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like too much, and going on the escalator, there was too many similarities to it. And there's a part of me that's like, Donald Trump's a bit of a marketer. Did he do that on purpose, or is it like genuinely something just accidental?
Look, this is the thing, though, right? Like, it's a well-known fact that Donald Trump was president.
Yeah.
What's not a well-known fact is that the guy had been talking about becoming president for 2 decades before he finally decided to run.
Yeah, right.
At one point, he was a very close ally of the Clintons.
Right. Right.
So, I don't necessarily think it's a stretch that The Simpsons went, Donald Trump wants to be president. How fucking funny would that be? Oh my god, we should put that in an episode. And then it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, to be honest with you, much like The Simpsons, I don't think any other motherfucker in the world believed that Trump would become president either.
No.
So,
that was a crazy
so
time.
outlandish.
It was. I don't, like, for some reason, and this is the funny thing, because I like The Simpsons, I grew up with The Simpsons, is that I remember watching all these moments and people talking about it, but being so, like, shut off from real life that I know the Simpsons thing that happened, but I don't know what happened in real life.
Yeah, look, there's probably a lot of other little things here and there, like the smartwatch, FaceTime, like all sorts of little things that The Simpsons has predicted that people just gloss over. But fun fact about The Simpsons, did you know that the most downloaded sat-nav voice is Homer Simpson?
Really?
Yep. So you can literally, on your sat-nav, those old sat-navs that you used to fucking plunger on your windscreen in your car, you could download different voices for them, like, hyper-British sexy female secretary, or, whatever your kink is. Some people thought that a Homer Simpson one would be really funny.
That is funny.
And it became the most downloaded voice in all of sat-nav download history.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Imagine having Homer Simpson telling you where to go and how to get there. You'd never get there.
It would be funny if it had his inflection, like his mannerisms and stuff.
Oh,
yeah, like just randomly stuff like that comes in. Yeah. But yeah, no.
Turn left. No, I mean right.
Go! Oh, that works so well. But yeah, Simpsons predicting everything. That has gotten more traction as time goes on.
I was just going to say, it's rather low on the list. It's like, in the, the 11 to 20s kind of in the list. But like, as time goes on, I do think that there's still going to be more things that The Simpsons will quote-unquote predict. Like, I remember the shock factor of, oh my god, they predicted the fucking submarine.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of did. Like, when you watch the actual episode, they didn't, because the submarine didn't go missing, no one died, all that kind of stuff.
You can draw conclusions to these things. Like, and that's what makes it easy. And I think over time, people are getting a little bit more... I'm going to connect these dots that don't really connect that well, but there is some absolute...
confirmation bias at its finest.
Yeah, there's some absolute bangers out there. I'm actually going to go rewatch some. I'm kind of keen to see what actually happened in real life. I get all my news from The Simpsons. Didn't you know that?
Alrighty, moving on.
Oh, Richard! Oh, wow!
Very next one in my list. The slap heard around the world. Will Smith slapping the absolute taste out of... I don't give a fuck who the hell it was. It was Will Smith slapping someone.
Chris Rock.
Chris Rock absolutely copped a shellacking.
Yeah, that one...
What a moment!
Okay, so when you first heard about that, did you believe it was true? Did you believe it was a setup?
I thought it was such a setup. The first thing that I did when I heard about it, because I saw like a news.com.au, Will Smith slaps Chris Rock. I'm like, wait, what? Quick, off to Twitter I go, and I'm looking for every different angle, then you see the...
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
I'm going to, okay?
Yeah.
Oh shit, this was real.
Yeah, oh man, that moment was kind of like... There's always been this barrier between us and like Hollywood, right? There's always been this like this pedestal because it's so like curated, and the PR teams that like support the actors and everyone famous in that like area of life. It's so crazy that we saw such a human moment happen.
I know,
but it was so like when you look back on it, it's like everyone knew it was an overreaction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, you know, I'm used to seeing, you know, people in my real... I mean, like, that's something that I would, you know, old mate Lockie would do. Hey, Lockie. You know, like, you don't... Will Smith went on to win the Actor of the Year Oscar that same night.
And got a standing ovation.
And he got a standing ovation.
Yeah, there's a mind sickness there to some of
Like,
that.
come on, people.
I mean, you know what was even, to me, and this is obviously my moments for this, and I'll interject where I can with this, but my moment for that stood out to me more so than the slap was Jim Carrey's reaction to it. And I don't know if you saw it, but Jim Carrey kind of like, and I don't know if you followed him for the last few years, he's kind of he's been a little bit like, there's a sickness in Hollywood, there's like this mind virus that people like, they get in there and they have to act a certain way, where he's very realistic. And one of the things that comes with comedians is they're very in touch with people because they have to be. Their content comes from that, their jokes come from that. And with Jim Carrey, he turned around and goes, I think it was ridiculous. And then he got a standing ovation. It was, how the fuck? So yeah, no, that was a moment for me too. I think everything surrounding that moment, because there was so much content created from it.
Yeah. Like, oh my God.
And because it was so recent, and podcasts exist now. Like, so many podcasts. Every podcast I listened to mentioned it. Every single one.
Now here we are, in our first episode mentioning it.
Only a couple years too late.
Look, honestly, I think it was definitely an iconic moment, because one of the biggest actors in the world at the time displayed a degree of humanity that we're just not used to seeing Hollywood display.
No, because...
But also, Hollywood kind of endorsed that kind of abuse by giving him that standing ovation later on in the night.
It was so fresh, I don't think people know how to react, because you remember...
But I don't think people truly knew that it was real or not at the time.
Yeah, I agree. It's so fresh. Like, when it's so fresh, people haven't had the chance to digest that information. And in that moment, and then, you know, he went on to make a speech, and he talked about his character that he played, and how there was like this fierce defensiveness to this character, and how he kind of... It was weird because he related it to the action without mentioning the action.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think people just don't know how to react to that. Because, you know, they also realise they're on national TV. They're on international TV at the same time for the Oscars, and it's the biggest event. It's not like the Emmys or
Exactly.
or something like what
Exactly.
we have in Australia, like the Arias, where something might happen. But it was the Oscars. It's the pinnacle event.
Yep. Yeah,
And
it's
so-
crazy. It was just such a moment, and I still think that slap. It's the, like I said, it's the slap heard around the world, and I still think to this day people are struggling to get past it. I mean, I think, look, at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in being able to separate the art from the artist.
Yep.
You know, he might be a bit of a dickhead, but fuck me, he's a good actor.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, speaking of tortured talent, we're going to move on to our next one. One word that it captures the entire 90s and beyond, and it is just one single word.
Well, what I do is I look a woman up and down and I say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Friends.
This is going to maybe come across weird, but I never really got into Friends, and I think it's maybe because of my age. I never really saw it.
Yeah, you are a bit fucking old, aren't you?
No, young, my friend, young.
Sure,
And
sure.
so I never really got into Friends, but you know, I got the next generation of shows. So like the ones that kind of spout.
The ones that Friends made the way for.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
you know, How I Met Your Mother. and
But
those-
see, that's important, though. That's important. That's why Friends is on this
I
list,
agree.
because without a show like Friends, How I Met Your Mother doesn't exist.
yeah, I mean, maybe it exists, but it's different.
Yeah,
It's definitely different.
yeah.
And I think and how iconic the characters from those shows.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, it's funnier because later in life, as you know, as social media starts to, I watch a lot of moments with like Joey, because I find Joey hilarious. Like,
Yeah,
his
Matt LeBlanc.
His character's hilarious because he's like this dumb idiot, but
Yeah,
he's meaning
yeah,
well. But,
yep.
Like,
Even now, he's just got that really blind, kind of stupid look on his face, and it's just like, it's just so lovable.
how you doing?
Yeah, how you doing?
How you doing?
How you doing?
But yeah, no, I agree. Like, as much as I haven't been a massive fan of Friends early in the days, I'm finding I'm watching more and more of their content. As you know, as the content kind of nature shifts to
Yep.
like shorter,
Yep.
short form videos, I find the snippets that the most iconic snippets from Friends,
Yep.
I'm diving deep on them, and I love them. They're fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Speaking of Friends,
Yes.
next item on my list is two friends that went too far. Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. Nipplegate 2004.
I always thought that was an accident. Was that not?
Oh my god, I don't know. I don't think it was. It wasn't planned. My understanding is that there was supposed to be a moment where he ripped a portion of her clothing off and it would reveal some sort of a studded bikini brazier or something going on there. And he went to rip it off and he grabbed the whole thing and ripped it off. Or at least that's the story. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, I've never seen... Now, I'm gay, so I haven't seen many bras. But I've never seen a bra that someone just rips out like that and it just comes off so cleanly on accident.
Yeah, it's kind of like how, you know how YouTubers nowadays
Yeah.
do like wild pranks that are like disguised as like something that's not supposed to happen.
Yes,
That's what that
exactly.
feels
That's what
like.
it felt like at the
That's what it
time
feels
too,
like. But-
and it hasn't aged well because it still feels like that.
Yes.
But you know what? What an iconic moment in history. Because only, like 15 years earlier, 95 I think it was, might have been earlier, Janet Jackson's brother performed what is still to this day regarded as one of the best Super Bowl halftime shows ever. And 15 years later, the Jackson family they made the entire planet stand still once again, this time with Janet Jackson's nipple.
I definitely agree with a lot of these moments. Like, they're definitely, like, they've kind of transcended the time period that they were in.
They've transcended the moment and become bigger than just the moment. They've become popular culture.
Yeah, I agree. What's our next one, mate?
Our next one, our last one for this episode. Oh, you're going to love this, Dean. You ready?
I'm hoping so.
You ready? Because we've spoken about friends. We've spoken about two friends that went a little bit too far. And now we're going to speak about a different kind of friend. We're going to speak about the friend that you make wandering around the beautiful world of Kanto. 1996. Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yes, I agree 100%. Red and Blue, fuck. Where were we? How old were you when Red and Blue came out?
I was 18 and 20, 2000, so like 14. I was 14 years
Okay,
old.
so I was 6.
So I didn't have a Game Boy.
Yeah.
I didn't have any Nintendo. Like, I grew up in a Sega family.
Yeah.
I grew up in an Atari family originally,
Okay,
showing my
we'll-
age a little bit there.
I wanna touch on that a bit later.
Then we went to Sega, and it was always the Mega Drive 2. We never even went Master System. We always stuck with Mega Drive. So when the Nintendo GameCube came out and Nintendo started releasing games, like, it wasn't on my radar as a kid. It probably wasn't until, if I'm really honest with you, for me, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to my Pokemon fandom. It wasn't until Pokemon Go.
Yeah. No,
Pokemon Go came out, and that just opened my mind to the Pokemon world. And I have since gone back and played some of the Pokemon games. But again, I don't have a Game Boy. I don't have a Game Boy Plus or a Game Boy Advance or anything like that. Like, I never played any of those earlier games. So the only games I've played from the Pokemon franchises are on the Nintendo Switch.
I think Pokemon Go was the biggest entry point for any game, and obviously
What was the thing they said about Pokemon Go?
When Pokemon Go was released, it was the closest we had to world peace for about 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
But Pokemon Go, so there's, with Game Boys, like, when I was a kid, much more into games than I am now as an adult. When I was a kid, I did have my Super Nintendo, my SNES, my 64, and all that kind of stuff, which had Pokemon games on it too.
Yep.
Red and Blue obviously driving that from the beginning. But with Pokemon Go, and I understand for you why you've come in at this time, but not just you, but people older than you in their 60s, 70s and stuff, people younger. It's because we all had phones and the game was given to us.
Exactly.
Whereas you, as a Pokemon fan younger, you had to go out and be a fan of the game to spend the money. Because there is a psychological side of spending money on something, because it comes down to choice. Right? And the paradox of choice is, I can only buy red, I can only buy blue, or I can afford both, but I have to miss out on a different game I like.
Yeah. 100%.
Whereas Pokemon Go, coming in, it was free access.
Yep.
So to see how strongly it was received from people who may have never even involved themselves at all, having that element of, let's do something that's fit and fun, but also get involved with this augmented reality world.
Well, look, that's the thing, it was the AR world that was really part of the Pokemon release that I think really blew people's minds. You were catching Pokemon on maps of your neighborhood.
Yeah, and I don't know if
was
people...
nuts.
Do people still do this as much, where they do the augmented reality, where you see the Pokemon,
100%.
but in like...
This is the thing, like, Pokemon Go had its moment when it first released. I think it's 7, maybe closing in on 8 years. No, 7 years. 7 years this year, I think it was. Pokemon Go came out. And it's funny, like, I still play Pokemon Go very religiously. Like, it's coffee, cigarette, Pokemon Go. It's my go-to in the morning. Like,
all healthy habits.
All healthy habits. All take way too much of my money.
Yes.
But like, I speak to people about Pokemon Go, and they're like, "Oh, do people still play that?" Well, not only do people play that, but Pokemon Go now is bigger than it has ever been.
Yeah?
It is still the #1 downloaded app on every single mobile phone app store.
Yeah, nice.
There is still more people playing Pokemon Go now than ever before.
And it comes down to a value thing for me. It's like how much value you get for how much you give. And obviously there's people that are hard into it, like yourself, who have been on that journey for so long that now you're up to the point where you don't mind spending $1 on a raid or $2 here and there.
Oh, I do mind spending $2 on a raid.
But yeah, you know what
Fuck
I mean.
you,
Like,
Niantic.
you spend so much money that never existed before because you find the value.
100%.
Those in-game purchases that in the past you'd have to front up the money before purchasing the game, but now you already are in the game, you like the game. And I mean, I think I don't know how true this is, and I know this was about a year ago that I heard this, but of the gaming industry, in whatever millions, billions of dollars in the gaming industry, that 80% of gaming purchases or money that is injected in the gaming comes from in-game purchases.
Well, here's a fun fact. Yeah, and that's 100% true. I mean, Pokemon Go is free to play, but it's not free to win.
Just don't care about winning.
But here's the thing, right? The very first episode of Pokemon aired in 1997. April 1st, interestingly enough, 1997. Fun fact, Ash's final episode in the Pokemon franchise was episode number 1234.
1,234. I'm not...
1, 2, 3, 4.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, fun fact there. But like it just, there's over 1,000 episodes of Pokemon, and I don't think that takes into account all of the little episodes, like the Hisuian episodes. They did like a little side series.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of other little side series that are about to come out. Obviously, focusing on Paldea, the newest region that came out with Scarlet and Violet. Like there's so much content coming with Pokemon Go. It's really fascinating to. Like you got Detective Pikachu movies, and I think they're about to release a second movie
yes.
as well as a remake of the Detective Pikachu
and the game. Yeah.
And, like there's new expansions. Like Pokemon Scarlet Violet came out like maybe 12, 18 months ago, and they're about to release the very first of 2 downloadable content expansions. And people are losing their mind.
Yeah,
like
right.
People are losing their mind about this stuff. Like it is such an important franchise. I would go so far as to say that the Pokemon intellectual property is up there. I think previously I'd said top 5. Today I'm going to go top 3. Today I'm going to say Pokemon as an intellectual property would be in the top 3 intellectual properties ever.
I think a lot of, and this is spouted a lot by YouTubers, so I don't know how true it is, but with Pokemon, I believe it's the number 1 franchise or master franchise as comes to value and turnover. But
quite probably.
Yeah, I believe it's number 1, and I think like Hello Kitty or something is like number 2. It's kind of like ridiculous, but yeah, look, we take it back to Red and Blue and what that means and how it started now, and you have to kind of be in a different mindset when you look at what it was to what it is now, because you were mentioning the Hisuian kind of shows and these off branches and stuff like that, and they're bringing in different people who maybe like animes, like Twilight Wings, I think it was called.
Yep.
Was one of these off branches come from Pokemon, but the anime style, the art style was more like traditional Japanese, and it brought in just different people that may have thought in the past that Pokemon was more for kids. It has evolved over time.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the most appealing things about Pokemon has always been the serenity of it all. Like it's such a simple, innocent concept.
Go on that.
Like the concept of a kid wandering around the world, catching animals and making friends. That's it. Yeah, there's no war. There's no interest rates. There's no fucking, money's not an object. Like this little kid never sits there never sits there looking at his wallet going, fuck, I don't have enough money to go to Kalos.
And it's funny you say a lot of that, right? Because there's like this, so there's our world where we live in, and then there's the Pokemon world. Yeah. And between us, there's memes that make fun of like what happens in the Pokemon
100%.
world. And so I was looking at one the other day that made me really laugh. And it was like this Rattata or something, and it was this trainer Joey or something, like a young trainer.
Yep.
And it was like mimicking early game for pretty much any Pokemon game where you verse those trainers that have like level 3 Rattatars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was sent out this Rattata, you send out your higher level Pokemon, flog the shit out of it, and then when he's crying and consoling his Rattata, you come over and stand over him with your hand out for money.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. Look, it's really interesting though. Like when you think about that whole concept about, you never see Ash looking at his bank account. You never see, there's never any questions about, oh, well, it looks like we're going to go to Galar now. And next thing you know, they're on an aeroplane or they're on a fucking boat like it's really crazy. And I think that's a big part of the reason why there's the conspiracy theory around Ash's backstory.
Oh yeah, go on that.
So there's this whole concept, there's this whole idea going around that it's been a thing for many, many, many years. People think that Ash Ketchum, in the first episode of the Pokemon anime, had an accident and was in a coma. And that the whole Pokemon franchise is his coma dream.
It is a fever dream, isn't it?
It does seem like it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that's not going to ever be confirmed by Game Freak or by Pokemon or anything like that. And, very obviously, that's not what they intended to create. But it's just really fascinating given how much it's like an idealized life. It's so idealized that obviously it can't be real. So it must be a fever dream.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's the cartoon world and what can happen in that. But it's because there's so many unrealistic things, but I guess we kind of attach to that because they don't deal with adult problems. They don't deal with problems of being bullied as much. Or if you have a bully, you can battle it out with where you send your rat against his fucking lizard. And how many times can you get electrocuted by a rodent before?
Right.
Yeah, so...
You know, like...
I hear it and it's funny, but the innocence in me doesn't want to buy it.
Nah.
Not at all.
It's not a legitimate theory, but it is an interesting fan theory when if you delve deep into it, there are little landmarks in the series that it's like, that almost it's like confirmation bias, essentially. You know, I believe that this is the thing that it is, and I'm now going to look out for little flag posts that tell me that that's what it is.
I mean,
that confirm that.
It's like anything. It's like the Marvel series when they introduce Easter eggs from the comic books.
Yeah.
It just draws you in more to the fandom.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel a part of something, or that you're in on a secret with your tribe that you know but no one else does, and so you feel that you can deliver on that and talk to people about that. So yeah, I dig it.
So that's my list, man. That's my list so far. Can't wait to talk to you about the rest of it.
I love it. And by the way, I think being that I love the Pokemon so much, I want to do an episode just on Pokemon.
Oh fuck yeah!
I want to do an episode where we just chat shit about Pokemon.
Yep.
Because I was early in the games, whereas I think you're much bigger on the games now. Like,
yep, massively.
With Pokemon Go and Scarlet and Violet, I haven't played Scarlet and Violet, and I played Pokemon Go for probably 20 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Literally downloaded it, tried to catch something, like, nah, done.
There's one less person to steal all my fucking shinies then.
I'm not stealing any shinies. I'm so not interested in shiny hunting, like, so not. If I was playing, like, say, Diamond and Pearl, or the remakes, Brilliant Diamond,
Shiny Pearl, yeah.
If I was playing those and a shiny popped up, yeah, I'm gonna catch it. But
I'm not
looking for it.
Of course you're gonna catch it.
I'm not looking for it. But man, yeah, I dig talking about Pokemon. I could talk about it for a while. Let's do this again.
Fuck yeah.
Alright.
Peace.
Peace.
So, Dino, I got fired from my job today at the bank.
Mm-hmm.
An old lady came in and asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her over.
I'm not even going to laugh at that. It's disgusting. It's filthy, which makes me love it more.